In the last couple videos, we looked at data on mass shootings and gun-based suicides. Now, the question is whether or not guns can actually save your life. That is, do crime victims or bystanders ever actually shoot back at criminals? Or is this claim of self-defense with guns just a convenient NRA talking point? Let's look at the data and find out. The idea of gun-based self-defense data is quite tricky to deal with, mainly because if flashing a gun were to de-escalate a potentially violent encounter, we may never know that it actually happened, or what would have happened if the potential victim wasn't carrying a gun. This common reporting bias is actually quite hard to handle statistically. So instead, what we're going to look specifically at are incidences where a victim or a bystander shoots an alleged perpetrator. In these cases, we can be a little more confident in the data reported, as when someone gets hit with a bullet, there will very likely be a police report about it, and it will be recorded in a police database, which we can then go find. Once again, data on victims who shoot criminals comes from the Gun Violence Archive, while statewide violent crime data comes from the FBI's Crime Data Explorer, with links to both in the description, and I encourage you to go check it out yourself. We'll look again at the years of 2017 to 2019, which are the most recent years without COVID and lockdowns confounding all of our data. I also removed Washington, D.C., as it was a big outlier given its strict gun laws and higher crime rate than states with comparable populations. I also removed the 2017 Sutherland Springs shooting from this dataset, as it was in fact a case where a bystander shot at a mass shooter, but dozens still died, making it a big outlier in terms of both injuries and fatalities. For those who haven't seen my other gun violence videos, we use a 6-point scale to determine which states have weak gun laws, the zeros, and which states have strong gun laws, the sixes. And really everything else in between. It looks a little something like this. So a state gains 1 point on our system for each of the following. 1 is a permit required. 2 is registration required. 3 is a license required. 4 are assault weapons restricted. 5 are magazine sizes limited. And 6 are background checks required for private sales. As in the previous videos, I want to first see if gun laws have any effect on the number of perpetrators shot by victims using the same negative binomial regression model and adjusting for population just like we did last time. And the answer we find? Gun laws are super significant. Every additional strictness point drops the number of self-defense shootings by between 23 and 39%. As an example, California had only, say, 3.5 criminals shot per million, while Texas had over 12. And we can plot the data on a log-log scale. The red line shows an increasing trend of criminals shot versus population for weak law states, and the shifted blue line shows the same thing for the strong law states. And this is a logarithmic scale, so a linear shift like that implies that we have a 6.5 times increase in criminals shot when going from strong laws up to weak laws. Also, if we just do a 30-20 split for those states with weak laws and those with strong laws, we see a significant increase in the number of criminals shot per million people. It goes from about 6 shot per million up to 11 per million when we go from the strong law states to the weak law states, and this is strongly significant. And also note that all these numbers are aggregated over 3 years, not 1. So states with weak gun laws have more citizens shooting back at criminals. We see that in the data. The second question I want to consider is, are these states just more violent on average than states with strong gun laws? Last time, we found a strong correlation between states with weak gun laws and elevated suicide rates. This time, no. There's no indication that weak or strong gun law states are more or less violent than any others. And I tried a bunch of different approaches, a 2-sample t-test, Mann-Whitney-Wilcoxon test. I tried a couple different regressions just to check everything, and no, there's no detectable relation between gun laws and violent crime in this dataset. I also tried a logistic regression to predict the criminal shot as a fraction of all violent crimes, with gun laws again as the predictor. Hence, I normalized by violent crimes rather than normalizing by population. The result is again, strongly significant increase in the fraction of victims shooting back if gun laws are weak. So we can visualize this in a density plot. For most states, the ratio of criminals shot to total violent crimes is below 0.4%, or that's 1 shot per every 250 violent crimes. The 7 states that transcend this are Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and lastly, the state whose citizens are most likely to shoot back at a criminal, Mississippi, coming in at over 1% of violent crimes, resulting in a perpetrator getting shot by a victim. That's by a victim, not a cop or someone else. So what can we learn from this data? First is that criminals are more likely to get shot by their victims in states with weak gun laws. Second is that neither weak nor strong gun laws seem to correlate at all with the overall violent crime rate. Third, don't commit crimes in Mississippi. They're the most likely just to shoot you back. It would be interesting to dig into this data further. All we know is that these were cases where a victim shot back and hit a criminal. But there's a lot more information on, say, whether or not the victim survived the encounter, whether or not the criminal survived the encounter, whether or not others were involved, injured, or killed in the incident. And it'll take some time to look over all of these nuances in the data, so please subscribe and stay tuned for more videos on statistics, guns, and any other topic that happens to hop into my head. And feel free to leave a comment, because even if you dislike my analysis, I still really like to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for listening.